To order and go from there.
Okay. The Winston College Advisory Board, December 1st, 4 p.m. meeting is now called to order. Well, let's see. So since Paulina Solis is not here as the secretary, then I will take the roll call myself. Let me just get everybody up on page there. Now I can see everybody else. Okay.
Thanks, Curtis. And everybody remember, we need your cameras on because you're conducting a public meeting. Thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Faith Springs.
I'm here.
Sophie Brown.
Present.
Bruce Williams.
Present.
Myra Ramirez.
Present.
And I believe we have 2 excused absences. Is that correct, Ms. Walt? Jamie?
Yes, Paulina and Allie.
Jamie, could you please say their first and last names and their schools?
I sure can. I just need to pull that up really quick. That's why I was hesitant.
Okay, so it's Paulina Solis.
This page, Forsyth Tech Community College.
Okay, and then we have Allie Morton from Wake Forest
University.
Okay.
All right. We also acknowledge the presence of Ms. Wanda Allen Abraham, the Director of Human Relations, Ms. Jamie Wildeck, and Mr. Larry Bell. All right. So at this time, we have opportunity to review your minutes from this November 17th meeting. Everybody, if you haven't reviewed them, could you take a minute to review them?
Chairperson Curtis.
Yes.
I apologize. We also did have an excused absence from Kaylee Kamira from UNCSA.
All right. Thank you so much. And in light of that as well, so we need to make a motion to approve the excused absence, and also there are, if I believe, there's maybe 2 unexcused absence. I think Ian Brewster received no communication from Ian Brewster, and I don't recall the other name.
I know Cameron is not on. Cameron Allen from Wake
Forest University. Okay.
Correct. And you all don't have a quorum. You need 1 more.
Right. So we can't vote.
So yeah, no need to vote. You'll just be
just acknowledge.
Yes.
Okay. And Curtis, we also have Jadavian King from WSSU not present.
Jadavian King. Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So since we can't, but has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes that are here? It's just us 4, 5, correct? Okay, excellent. So we can't table, we can't do anything. That's not good. Okay, that's cool. Then the next thing we'll move to the general business. We did set up 2 distinct groups for, I believe it was housing, was one, as well as, I'm gonna get the other one right here. 1 second. And hunger. I was definitely part of the Nlc Food Initiative. It was me, Allie, and Sophie, and the housing was Myra and Paulina. Faith, you were not here at the last meeting. And Bruce, I don't believe that you stated it, which one you would be involved in. So I will start off with the Nlc Food Initiative, and we were tasked with bringing some questions back to present as part of a survey that would go out to our, it would be a kind of universal survey that would go out to our respective community campuses. Has anyone thought that through? Sophie.
So I came up with some questions and I sent them to Paulina, but I see that she is not here. Is there someone I could send it to who would have that and kind of be able to look at it and maybe screen share it?
Yes, Sophie, can you go ahead and just email. You can even reply all to the email that we sent out previously about this meeting. And then Jamie will have it, I'll have it, everybody will have it. And then Jamie could possibly share it on the screen here.
I saw Faith's hands up as well. Is Faith, you?
Yes, I reviewed the video from the last call, and I did have some questions that I have together and just a few thought processes. I agree with a lot of stuff that was mentioned. I think one of the things that we could also, maybe something subtle is, I think a good way to approach this survey would be as a health assessment and not necessarily a hunger survey. It could subconsciously place students on guard. So maybe if we present it in that way, it would just be like, how often are you eating? Have you helped a friend eat? Things like that may allow for them to be a little bit more open with the information. Another thing I considered was, I know for PsychTech does food giveaways where we will have students come in during the evening. It might be on hold right now and they'll just give out food. Maybe not just necessarily only looking at the survey, but also looking at other opportunities. A lot of times with surveys, and I'll just say from my personal experience, is like, oh, a gift card. Let me run through this really quickly. But if you're having a conversation with someone, I think all of us on different campuses have the opportunity to speak with different students and kind of gather information. I think that's also a good resource that we should be using. So like, even if we're participating in like, for PsychTech gave away lunch or kits for Thanksgiving, just the opportunity in small talk or casual conversations to kind of mention, oh, okay, you're getting this, or how are things going, or what have you seen was a big one for me. An electronic survey would be, I think, a good idea because it's anonymous, and I think that we can, I don't know how difficult this would be, but to set triggers for certain responses to automatically provide additional information. So that way, because it's anonymous, let's say they answer that they're, not eating every day or something like that, there may be a link that's available for us to put on automatically at the end of the survey. Okay. That was a thought, but some of the questions I came up with, and I wanted to come up with questions based on like the thought process of what type of information am I trying to get, and not forgetting the fact that students don't always know what hunger looks like, right? So one of the questions that I thought, and it may be too far out if we're limiting the questions to like 5 or 10, was what does a person with a food need look like to you, right? And then like, how often are you eating? Are you eating healthy? Why or why not? I found that offering a question for suggestions to be provided is also a good option, because a lot of times, they may have an option or a solution that we have not thought of that can turn wheels that will allow us to help further. Have you ever fed a hungry friend or paid for their lunch? How often? Do you have suggestions to help other students? Things that, I think still get the point across, but maybe aren't as direct. I think sometimes help with students. I think a lot of times we're more inclined to, I hope that we're inclined to think of others and sometimes put ourselves a little bit on the back burner. So that may be an opportunity for more information to be brought out to the forefront. Maybe like, I'm sorry. I thought of some other stuff, but I want to keep it to the questions. I'm sorry. I did a lot there.
Okay. Faith, everything that you just said, particularly the questions, do you have that in written form?
I do.
Excellent. All right. Can you submit that the same way Ms. Wanda just advised the other person to submit it, right, as a Word document, possibly? Bruce, I saw your hand up, and I did recall that you, as well as Myra, we were debating, not debating, but discussing the 5 to 10 question thing. And so I wanted to get to you on that.
Okay. Personally, I'll start with the question that I have. So a question I have, and I've experienced this personally, is have you ever slept to dissipate your hunger at nighttime? Because I know I've dealt with that in my own life. And I feel like that's important, especially like at my school. I know a lot of people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis talk about that. and we joke around about it, but in reality, I believe that it's something that needs to be taken into consideration, as well as the type of food that we're having access to, and do the individuals that we are, well, the communities that we're around, do they know any adequate resources to get food that may not be, just in the cafeteria or, in the local food court? I feel like that's important because as people, we may not have the know-how to say, I need help, I need this, people are prideful, and knowing that information and having that access is important, especially for a minority group and just for people in general. So I think those two questions are very imperative to the mission that we're trying to get to.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Sophie.
I just want to make sure that we can clarify that this is having to do with food security. So I think in our questions, we definitely need to clarify that it is not because of another health issue or an eating disorder that you are deciding not to eat, but it's more so factors going into food insecurity, because I don't think we're trying to get at eating disorder or anything like that, just free.
That's a good point. Myra, you were developing some questions dealing with housing.
Yes, I was. I was working with the secretary.
Alina.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my computer, but yes, I didn't get to meet with a lot with her, but we come up with questions as like as a college student, because we're trying to focus on that. Have you or anybody else experienced food insecurity? That was like the first question. The second question would be something along the lines as, do you believe food insecurity is an issue? No, housing insecurity is an issue in your campus? Because I don't think a lot of students will consider it, but the ones that have experiences of know of somebody will put yes. And then that kind of narrows it down. We want to include more specific questions, but we didn't know if it was a good idea. And I don't know what you think as far as for housing.
That last part was a statement or question?
It's I guess like a question, because we can do like more specific stuff, like narrow it down to like a common, like kind of common question where you can type in whatever you want and add, like, if you experience it, tell us about your experience, right? How can your campus help? And like open-ended questions, kind of like that. So those are the ones that we kind of thought about. I don't know if, well, she's not here, but if she had others
right
to include on it.
Myra, can you go ahead and add those questions to the chat? I wanted to make sure everyone, and welcome, Cameron. How you doing?
Hey, Cameron.
You help us.
Thank you so much. I didn't want to interrupt anyone.
Oh, you're fine. You help us to have a quorum now, so you all can vote. But anyway, I was just saying, if for the questions that you all have, would you please add those to the chat so that everyone can see those, because you all are going to need to narrow down the questions, or if you have exactly 10 and you like them all, that's great too. But I think that during the last meeting, you all decided to go with 10 questions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I'll add mine to the chat so you can look at it as well.
Okay. Because I think it was supposed to be 5 housing, 5 food insecurity.
Yeah.
So that way we can, I'm visual. I don't know about you all, but it will probably help to see them in writing in the chat so that we can kind of track where we are.
Excellent. And since Cameron, you came in just now, we were still discussing the food and housing survey questions. I don't know if you got an opportunity to review it, so.
I did see the email about bringing some, and I've seen so far a few emails. I prepared 3 questions, but I'm not sure if they're in line with what we were supposed to bring. Was there any specifics that, because I can reframe if needed?
I think it was more,
We were looking for both, right, Curtis? Is that what you're?
Yes. Yeah. I had the opportunity to, I did a little research. I just gleaned a little thing. So one of the things I emailed Ms. Wanda about is that there's a study out that says that 39% of students experience food insecurity in some fashion. How you define that is probably always the question, whether it be through poverty or it's not unavailable. And speaking specifically of college students, and then 167 out of 167,000 students, there was that attended 2-year and 4-year schools. 46% experienced housing insecurity, and 17% had been homeless at one point during their collegiate career. So there can be a direct link between hunger and GPA. I don't know about anybody else that studies, but I tell you what, it's difficult to study on an empty stomach. So. And then I'll just read briefly through the questions that I had. Much like yours, Vice Chair Faith, I always think that it's better to ask questions either in sort of not direct, but indirectly. You generally get more answers and you get an honest answer instead of a direct question. So the first thing I wrote was, have you ever seen anyone experience fatigue, whether it be emotional or physical, due to food insecurity? And the second one was, where do you rate food on your basic needs as a college student? The third is, what are ways schools can aid in food security? And the fourth and final question was, do you believe food security and socioeconomic status are connected? If so, what are the minimal needs that can be fixed by a program aimed at that one issue? Specifically, since we're involved with the National League of Cities, and that is 2 of their direct goals. So those are the questions that I came up. And so I think that what we need to do is that we need to take the questions that we have specifically for each section, whether it be food or whether it be housing, considering that there are obviously some people that are not here, tailor those down into something, some form, and then we could probably go to task on voting and accepting those questions. Then we could deal with the next part of it. Floor is open.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think that a few things that we want to consider with these questions are, one, are we looking for multiple choice, essay, or both? And is that going to affect the response that we're going to get? And is that going to affect the information that we need to collect? And then the other one is, what information do we want to gather from these questions, right? So like we all kind of just did a lot of different general things, but in order for us to tailor the questions, we really want to know what information do we want to get from students that's going to help us with moving forward. Do we want to know how many people? Do we want to know how often this is? Do we want to know if they even view their situation as a food insecurity, you know?
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Faith says. I think narrowing it down would be a really good way to have a tactile approach going forward. I think one of the things that I was seeing is even if students know that the resources are available, or if resources are available, because I think starting from that will really be a good way to focus on how we can provide those resources or inform about them. So I think that's a great suggestion.
If I might piggyback off of that, Cameron, I forget her name, but the guest that was here at the last meeting, Tiffany had I guess, slew of resources that can be kind of connected to the survey questions to, I guess, inform the students and particularly the colleges of different ways or different avenues that they can resolve some of these issues. Floor is still open.
Another thing that Tiffany mentioned on the last meeting was that we should include the resources there for like immediate response for somebody that's struggling right now, like whether at the end or the beginning, I'm not sure where, but I think it's very important to include those like immediate response resources for students right now.
And Curtis, you are right. Tiffany Turner, who of course works for the city, and she works with the mayor's Think Orange campaign, which is the anti-hunger initiative. She did say she has a lot of resources that she would very happily share with CAB to incorporate in whatever way you all would think is appropriate. Whatever you deem appropriate, for the most effective outreach to your peers. She said she would certainly make that available to you. We actually are trying to see if she can join us on the call, because I thought that maybe she had received the invitation for this meeting, but I don't think she did. So we're going to see if she can join us if her schedule allows, because she could probably expound upon resources that she does already have available. So that may help you all with planning. So going back to this original point from Faith, I know she mentioned something about whether or not answers should be multiple choice, essay, and so on. What do you all think about that? Because that is critical. I think that when we originally started speaking about a survey, the concern was to make sure that it was as succinct and to the point as possible because of people's attention spans. And so with that being said, do you think multiple choice would be just as effective and maybe hopefully elicit truthful responses instead of somebody just breezing through it saying, and just going on? What do you all think about that?
Personally, I feel like it should be maybe a mixture. I feel like if people are more, have more of a need, it will provide, accurate answers. I feel like it just depends on the person, but I feel like there should also be a mixture. It shouldn't just be essay question after essay question, because like you said, that the attention span will get shorter. It should be a mixture. Maybe start off with the, multiple choice questions to make people feel comfortable, and then maybe mixture in the survey, the short answer questions after.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, Bruce. And if it's short answer, maybe you all need to make sure that the short answer questions are really big questions that multiple choice just wouldn't really capture the essence of what you're seeking. And so in other words, if you have 10 questions, maybe the last one or two could be short answer.
Right.
Understanding now that some people may skip them. They may be like, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do the, multiple choice. And is that something that you all would be okay with? Because, we know this is not some scientific type of thing here, but we want to get a reasonable understanding. We want to ascertain some reasonableness of what is going on with your peer group. So if they do skip the short answer parts, then we just have to understand that, it may or may not impact what you're doing. So in other words, would you want the survey to still count if it's incomplete? And so I don't know how surveys are set up. I know very little about this. And so will surveys automatically void themselves out if they're not complete? Can you set it up that way? I don't know.
I think that there were two things that we discussed. One is that there was the choice whether the individual reveals himself and anonymous. And I think we went with anonymous. And then the other part with this the survey is that depending on the medium, you can use Google Forms, you can use Microsoft Survey. So it depends on the medium that's choice. And that's a question that we still have to kind of tackle, because every school sends out surveys different. In fact, our school sends out surveys through different mediums, but we can send out through Google Forms, but we can also send it out through Microsoft. So it depending on what medium that you're using, how the survey can go out. And specifically, if it's going to be a universal survey, we need to come up with a medium that's acceptable for all the schools.
So maybe the medium that we select will be based off of our answers to these questions. Maybe we need to determine how we want this survey to set up before we actually start to narrow down the mediums that are available. So,
right.
One option is we could have an other column. Mm-hmm. So when you have a survey, instead of picking one of the multiple choices, you can have a radio button for other, which allows them to fill in an answer in case one of the options doesn't work for them. Another option would be you could make it to where the written part is not required, but if we're offering an incentive, maybe they're not entered into the incentive if they don't do the written part. Even if you have the written part required, there's still a chance that someone is going to say, this doesn't apply, or I don't have anything to say for this. So we don't want to take away the opportunity for people to participate and give us information, or do we, if they don't? Because I mean, they may not have anything else, or I mean, I don't know.
I think so. If I'm hearing it right, so you can make answering optional, but I think there is something that, regardless, because there are two things that you'll get. One, you obviously get information, but the other thing is you also get participation. So participation is that how many students actually care enough to participate. That's actually a good thing. So that gives us the interest that we know that if no one answered any question, we go, well, there is a problem because people are participating. So, and then the other part is the optional answer. We can make the answers optional depending on whatever the question is, as you're saying. Bruce, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh no, I don't have one.
Sorry.
This is more anecdotal than anything, but I really like the idea of the multiple choice with the other under, because I feel like it does lessen, I don't want to say the burden, but maybe just fears people may have about responding. If it is a personal situation to them, it just gives them that option to kind of separate from it. Maybe even if the last question is open, like a specific question where you have to write, it's not required. And then the very final question may be something like any other comments, or just leave it open so that people can, fill in where they need. I think that might even open the floor a little more than what a specific question might have.
Okay. Sounds good.
So let's take a look at the questions that you all have in chat, because even those of you who emailed, I don't know if you saw, but hopefully you copied and pasted and put your questions in chat as well. And so let's look at those and see what we need to modify based on what you all are saying. What I'm hearing is that the recommendation seems to be, at least consensus-wise, is that you all would have multiple choice, and perhaps one of the multiple choice options would be other. And then you'd save one or two questions, perhaps, for short answer. Okay. So how many questions are in the chat? Do y'all have 10 questions there, or do you have more?
More.
Oh, how many?
I think we're lacking in the housing area. I think we have a lot of hunger questions.
Okay.
5, at least 5 for.
Go ahead, Sophie. I'm sorry.
Housing.
Yeah, I did a separate section for housing questions. I didn't go over those.
Okay. Yeah, we need 5 housing and 5 hunger.
I also added demographic questions, which I'm not sure if we're intending to do those at the beginning of the survey, just to get kind of a sense of who is answering the survey or what situation they're in. So I included that in my first 5, but I only wrote 5 security questions.
I thought that was good, Sophie. I noticed that. I thought that was really good.
I can share the whiteboard so that we can kind of compile and consolidate these questions, and you all can all see. Would you like for me to do that?
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. So you all just help me with what to type, but because I know there are a lot over in the chat.
Okay.
So if we're starting with housing, or no, sorry, hunger.
Okay.
How often do you eat per day?
How does everybody feel about that one? Good.
Are you eating healthy? And then like a second sector of that question was why or why not? If you are, what suggestions could you provide for other students? Have you ever fed a hungry friend or paid for their lunch? Sorry, slow down. How often? And then, do you have any suggestions to help other students? And what does a person with a need for food look like to you? Do you want me to read everybody's questions? Do you guys want? Okay.
So Faith, are those just your questions?
Those are my questions for hunger, and hers are next.
Okay.
So I can continue, or I don't know if she wants to read them.
You can read them if you want. I can also read them. Okay, so do we want to do the demographic questions? If not, I will just skip those first 5.
I think I was going to ask you all, what do you think about having the demographics questions like as a little pre-whatever? We wouldn't count that as a part of the survey, but yet it would be included. You know how when you do surveys, sometimes they do that. They will have demographic questions in the beginning, but that's not considered like a part of the survey for real, but we know it is. But just to keep it to our 10 so that we can still have our 5 and 5. What do you think about that?
I like that idea. I would suggest that we put them at the end of the survey so that I know in SATs, they've shown demographics have a lot to do with how you take the test following. So I think having the demographics at the end so they don't affect your previous answers would be important.
Okay. Does everybody like that?
Absolutely. I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
That's what.
Yeah.
For Jamie's sake, I will say my hunger questions first, so she isn't too like pushed around, if that's easier for you.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So a few of mine are very similar to Faith's, so I'll just kind of pick and choose. I think at saying like, do you label yourself as food insecure, and then saying like yes, no, or prefer not to say, or deal. And we could also, right before that, put in a definition of what food insecure technically means, so that in case someone is not aware, they are made aware before they answer. Sorry? Next question, do you have access to 3 meals a day if you want them, which is very similar to how often do you eat every day?
I'm sorry, I was letting Bruce back in. Can you say that one more time?
Yes, you have access to 3 meals a day if you want them. And then the options could be yes, no, prefer not to say. And then if you replied no to question 3, do you have access to healthy food, which I think is covered by Faith's. So we don't need to have that in there. Okay. In the past 3 months, have you skipped a meal due to lack of access to food? Which gives us a broader kind of sense of our those who we are surveying. And that would be yes, no, prefer not to say.
Just figured out copy and paste. Thank you, Wanda.
I was like, why are we retyping all this? I said, chat. I was like, what are we doing? I think I missed something.
So the last one you had was the does your school provide discounted?
Okay, well, did we have any more hunger questions?
I'm looking at it right now. It looks like Myra suggested the question I just now pasted. And then Bruce has a few questions as well.
Yeah, I can't read mine because I left by accident. So if somebody could read mine, that would be nice. Oh, hold on. I got them in my notes. Give me 1 second.
Bruce, had you already put them in the chat?
Yeah, I did, but because
Sorry,
I
Curtis,
left.
Bruce, whoever I'm talking to.
Yeah, it's Bruce. Because I had left by accident, they're not there anymore. So.
Oh.
Oh, but I can read them right off my laptop. So the first question is, have you ever slept to alleviate your feeling of hunger? A follow-up question to number 1 is, on average, how many nights do you recall sleeping to alleviate hunger, if any, during your collegiate career? Number 3 is, are you aware of resources regarding food in your local community? Number 4 is, do you think there are adequate food options available on campus that promote a healthy lifestyle? And the 5th question is, do you feel comfortable utilizing food banks and pantries?
Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Another question I see was, do you know where you can get free food? I don't know if that was already. But it looks like the other questions are housing, if we want to kind of consolidate the hunger before we move on to housing.
I added the one for, do you know where you can get free food? And then another one at the end after just kind of us talking. Do you need assistance or experience in the food insecurity now? Just because I was thinking of some of the resources, you know, if they are, and someone is open enough to say, yeah, I'm having a problem right now, that might be a good opportunity to provide them some resources or some information.
The one you have at the bottom that I put, Jamie, it says housing insecurity. So would that be?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I don't know how to delete it. There we go. Got it.
And Jamie, can you go down to, do you feel comfortable utilizing food banks and pantries? And can you make pantries plural, please?
Mm-hmm.
That's the, I can't help it. That's the former English teacher in me.
Actually,
pantry should be P-A-N-T-R-I-E-S.
This awesome whiteboard doesn't let me go back into the text. So,
okay. So you can't correct any of that, or
no, I think
spelling with demographic we can't correct, but you all know that we see that it's not correct. So for those of you who may be like me with stuff like that, we'll just overlook it. So now you all have the daunting task of trying to narrow these questions down to 5. And to try to make the majority of them multiple choice. Based on what you said earlier. And Jamie, may I make a suggestion too? I don't know if it'll let you do it, but can you number all of the questions so that if somebody says, well, I want to change number 8 or I want to tweak number 10 or whatever, we'll know what they're talking about? Will it let you do that?
I can try.
Okay.
I was trying to also kind of leave this side so we can, if we need to, if we see any questions that could be consolidated and then delete some of the other ones, that might help too.
Right.
So, okay, I'm going to put numbers beside these. Try, at least.
So you all, while Jamie is doing that, if you look at the questions, like I'm looking at the first few questions, do you want to figure out a way to make those multiple choice?
I think a lot of my questions are similar to the ones that Sophie mentioned, so it may not even be necessary to make the multiple choice. We maybe can just use her questions. And I think that she phrased them very well.
Okay, okay.
Well, that's just a suggestion.
Okay, thanks, Faith. What's everyone else think? Do you see any duplication, any we might be able to go ahead and delete?
So number 1 and 11 sound the same to me.
Okay.
I like the verbiage of number 11 better personally.
Okay, what's everybody else think? You all agree?
Yeah, we can get rid of 1 and stick with 11.
Okay.
You want it as a multiple choice?
Yes, I believe we agreed to that.
Right, you're right, Faith.
Okay.
What if we do like, instead of doing yes or no, we could do like yes, 3, no, just 1 or 2, because some people just eat 1. You know what I'm talking about?
Say that again, Myra.
So instead of like doing a yes, no, because I know some people just eat like 1 meal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like that's a personal preference. So we'll do yes, all the meals, no, just 1 or 2, or prefer not to answer.
Okay.
Rephrasing the question to how many meals do you eat a day would be 1, 2, or 3? Because I think this was specific to 3 meals. We can always add the other option to take care of it too.
It's up to you what to decide. I think it's good, yeah, but that's another option that we could phrase it. Yeah.
I like that. I like putting, if it was like how many meals do you have access a day? Because you could put, like you all were saying, 1, 2, or maybe 3 plus, and then prefer not to say. I like that. I feel like it gives a little more information too.
She might have already taken care of that though in the question, because it says if you want them, right? So
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Nutrition is 3 meals, so we want them to at least have access to 3 if you want. If you're eating less than that, then that's okay, maybe. So I mean, I don't know. That's a thought. I mean, it's phrased well, but we would just need to change it from do you have access to how many meals do you have access to, and either of those works.
I also think you can combine 2 and 14. Because it's a leading question.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, actually.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So Jamie, we have deleted number 1. We've deleted number 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, can't do that.
It's like, wow, that's good.
Hey, I am learning this as we go.
You're doing well.
Okay. That's good. That'll work. So you can still see it. That's good.
Okay, what others do you all see that should be combined?
number 12 is probably going to take care of a lot of them. So 12 probably takes care of number 7.
Right.
Would number 12 also help with that? So, I mean, the debate we just had about number 1, do you have access to 3 meals a day? Number 12, it kind of like helps with, if you're only eating 1 meal, you're choosing to do that. You're not skipping it because you had a lack of access.
Okay.
12 also takes care of number 10, I think, too.
I was thinking that number 10 and number 6 can be combined. They're kind of like a combo question.
Quick question. So, this is question number 6.
Yeah.
What data are we gathering? Because what makes me think is like biases, but somebody that hungry doesn't always look like it.
Right.
So are we collecting data to see if students are biased, or like what's the point of the question?
Oh, shoot.
Well, initially for me, the point of the question was when we initially had the conversation, and I can't remember the lady that was a part of it. One of the big things we mentioned was that people don't always kind of see themselves as that way. And it was to identify like, I don't necessarily see someone who, so like he mentioned going to sleep instead of eating. That was something that resonated with me and resonated with my culture. And so I wouldn't, if someone asked me that, I might not necessarily say going to sleep instead of eating is something that would be characterized as a food insecurity. And so sometimes that type of stuff just helps you to identify like someone's thought process on, you may need some help, but not know it. But I think that out of the 2 of those questions, I can see why it wouldn't be necessary to gather information. You know what I mean? I don't know. I will say the purpose behind it was to kind of gauge the person's thought process of what it means to be food insecure, because I don't think we always know how to properly identify it, if that makes sense.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And there may be a much better way to phrase it, you know, so, and 10 might do that. But I think that 12 probably takes care of 6 and 10, because we don't need them to do it. We're kind of doing it with all the other questions that we're providing. It's just my thought.
I'm going to have to step away. So Vice Chair Faith Springs, you will be taking care of things from here. But before I left, I was thinking that question 16 and 8 can kind of be combined as well.
Thanks, Curtis. And before you go, we probably need to have Cab to vote on anything that is on the table before you leave, because you helped to constitute the quorum.
That's right.
And so I know you all were going to vote earlier. And so you were supposed to vote also on the questions once you finalize them today. So I don't know how you all want to do that, because if you leave, Cab won't be able to.
Right. And also, I guess, Myra, you're the only person that brought housing questions. Is that correct?
No, I provided some housing questions also.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have this narrowed down to how many questions now for hunger?
1, 2. If we combine 16 and 8, that's a third. And obviously everybody went with, there's the 12. So there's 12, there's 11.
Can you also mark out the ones that we put to the right side?
Yes.
So 11 and 12.
Right.
And was that combining 6 and 10?
We're either going to combine it or strike it. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. I get. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to suggest is for number 5 about suggestions to help other students. I don't necessarily know that that is what we would need in the survey, because you all will be providing those resources through with Tiffany Turner. So I don't think that needs to be a survey question. What do y'all think?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, so and the same thing would apply to number 8.
Yeah, that's why
Number
what I was thinking about.
13. Yeah,
8 and 13 is it's we're giving the resources
exactly
and the options available on campus to promote a lifestyle. I don't know if food insecurity and healthy lifestyle are,
I agree.
I guess, synchronous.
I kind of agree with that, Curtis. What do y'all think? Because we want to remember what the whole purpose of the survey is. We want to know who is experiencing food insecurity. That's really what this is all about. And that the other extra stuff is very important, but then that could be more or less a service that you all are providing to your peers. When if you know of healthy alternatives, and if we know of restaurants here in the community who may provide a meal and that type of thing, that's more of an informational resource type of thing that you're providing. Trying to know who's hungry, how often are they hungry, and that type of thing. Is it because of a money issue? Is it due to that? Is it due to something else? That type of thing.
Right.
So I think the other questions seem to really hit on those areas.
And I think the number 7, it's very direct. So generally direct questions don't get great responses, but if we change it to, do you know of anyone, that might be a better way to state that question.
And so Jamie, also number 3 was one of the ones we had said, right?
Yeah.
That would not be.
Okay, that's what I was about to delete it and I wasn't sure.
Okay. And then for number 16, you all as CAB members have already kind of given everyone an idea of whether or not your school provides discounted or free food, right?
Right. I know Forsyth Tech definitely does.
I think you all already know that information. You all agree with that? You talked about it at the last meeting.
Is it important for us to determine if people are aware of the resources? Like, do you think it might be a good idea to rephrase that, or is that not something that would be a target of information?
I think that's a great point, Faith. What do you all think?
I think we definitely should make them aware. I'm sorry, Mom.
Sorry, you're fine.
So maybe we can rephrase it to just see if they know.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah.
What does everybody else think?
Could that be a question, maybe with the demographics that is combined with, are you aware of resources regarding food and housing in your local community?
Like a little pre-survey type of question.
Yeah, because then that way we can really stick to questions that are showing us that they're, what the insecurities are on campus. And that question doesn't really go to that. That's just letting us know, oh, wow, we need to really help get resources out.
So my only question for that is, are the demographic questions going to be required? Because if they're not, then that question wouldn't be there. But if you feel like it's something that maybe we should address at a later time, then I understand that too. Because I don't know if I fully understand or if we covered what information we're trying to uncover. And so maybe like a review of that could help me to understand which questions we should be more so targeted to. So we want to know, we know the problem exists. So what exactly is the information that we're trying to gain from the survey?
Well, what we're trying to gain, and that's a great question, Faith. What we're trying to gain is, what are the barriers out there to food security for college students?
Okay.
Trying to identify any barriers that are out there. that is what the National League of Cities is asking CAB to do as a part of that grant in working with Winston-Salem State University. And so the whole purpose of the survey is to find out directly from students what barriers exist to their food access.
Okay, so we have not really got.
So wouldn't that be a question that you could put in the survey? Like, what if you face food insecurity, what barriers limit you from achieving not being food insecure?
So that would be one of the short answer questions.
Yeah, I think that would be a great short answer question because it's directly impacting the information you're trying to get.
Okay. And so if we add that question, then how many questions do we now have for food, for hunger?
3.
Bruce, can you restate that question for me, please?
Okay, give me 1 second. So the question I have in mind would be, what direct barriers do you face that limit your access to being food secure?
Or what challenges affect your food security? Have you?
Affect your access to food instead of using the food insecurity, or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter.
So Jamie, yeah, it should be, what direct barriers do you face that affect your access to food? Okay. What do y'all think about that?
That's excellent.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Okay. So do you have your 5 now?
We have 3, but maybe we don't need 5.
Yeah, I mean,
they're going to be that, detailed and refined.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, but number 7 is not one of them, right?
Right. I need to delete it.
Okay, that's why I keep asking you all.
Yeah. Do you feel comfortable utilizing food banks and pantries? Is that a keeper, or?
We should keep it because it's important to know if they're already using it, because we talked about contacting local churches to see if students are going there, so that could gather that information for us.
That's good. That's true.
That could be a barrier. We might just want to rephrase it and make it less specific, maybe. Free resources? I don't know.
Okay. So where are we now?
What about have you ever paid for a meal for a friend or classmate?
I think that if we change it to, we can make the questions, do you or someone you know, either that or phrase a question around people. We can, rephrase it to something that's around people that's not that direct person.
That's good, Faith. Yes. Have you or someone you know paid for a meal for a friend or classmate due to financial constraints? That may be a bit much, but something like that. And understanding these questions are in rough draft form, so you all can always go back and tweak them. We just needed you to have something to present Winston-Salem State's administration to review for their survey, and then of course for you all's too. And then we can tweak them and finalize them as needed, but we just needed to have the essence of what it is that you want to ask. So they don't have to be absolutely perfect right now, because a couple of you could even volunteer to make those final little touches and changes to these. You don't have to finalize it perfectly during this meeting for the sake of time.
So we currently have 6, because we still have Bruce's question about have you ever slept to alleviate the feeling of hunger?
I think number 9 is encompassed in number 2.
That's very true.
All right. So then,
How about, have you skipped a meal or slept? I don't know, some kind of way we can incorporate the sleeping part into that. I agree with you, Faith.
Skipped or slept through a meal? In the past 3 months, have you skipped, maybe comma or parentheses, or slept through a meal due to lack of food access?
Okay.
due to the crazy formatting on this, I'm putting it to the side, but somebody will know to put it up there.
That works, Jamie. So we'll strike through number 9.
All right. Well, we got 5 then.
It's included in number 2. Okay. All right. So you all have your 5 for hunger. And for housing, we did have questions from Myra, and was it you, Faith? Mm-hmm. Okay. You all did a great job on hunger. How many total questions do we have from you, Faith, and from Myra? How many did you submit?
3, well, 1 of specific, so technically 2.
You have 2 questions to submit, Myra?
I have
Just
to.
2? Because I'm at work, so I have to I have
That's
another
okay.
responsibility.
I have 5 questions, and I just sent them to you, Jamie, in a private message to not block up the other one, for you to just copy and paste if that helps.
That would be awesome.
I'm gonna do that with mine.
Oh.
For some reason, I'm thinking the housing ones probably won't take you all quite as long to ferret out anyway.
I just resent them to everyone so you can grab it.
Got it.
Are we going to vote on these now?
Yes, we're getting ready to vote as soon as we get these questions up and you all review them and say that they are what you think they need to represent. We'll be good to go.
Okay.
Those are great questions, Faith.
Thank you.
Wow, yeah.
Cameron had a few questions also.
Okay.
One, let's see.
I have a few questions, but I don't know if they're encompassing of what we're trying to get at. So it's okay if we.
That's okay, Cameron. Is that one of yours? Has someone you know had to take a break from school? Whose question is that?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay.
I think I have one more, and I think that's the last of housing.
Myra, your question's not up there?
I just copied 2 of hers.
The last one's yours?
Yeah, the last 2 are mine.
Okay. I think those last 2 are kind of similar. What do you all think?
Yeah, the last 2 are exactly.
Okay. So one of those would be good.
I'll probably go with the last one.
Okay. What do y'all think? Everybody agree with that?
I agree.
Okay, so we'll just use the last one, Jamie. The one above it we can strike through.
So it's 1, that's 2.
Okay. There we go. Is that right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can combine, have you ever had trouble paying rent, with what would you do if you couldn't pay rent? And make that one question.
What would you do if you
Well, why not say, have you ever had trouble paying rent? And then if so,
Right. That's what I meant.
what
Yeah,
did you
combine it.
Yeah,
do?
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay, okay.
That's one. That gives us exactly 5 questions.
Okay. And then the what is your ideal housing situation? What prohibits this? That's all one question, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, 2-part question.
So I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, but what is your current ideal housing situation be more adequate? Maybe.
Could be more correct.
Because it's like more succinct, more direct to like what they're currently going through, not what they want.
Yeah. That may prohibit people from taking it out of context. So I think that's a good idea to add that current.
We may need to kind of clarify what we mean by that. What is your current? Like, what is
So
it that?
like, not to cut you off, my bad, but like when I say current, I mean like what are they going through right now, so we can identify those resources for the future to provide a solution. So like if I'm looking at it from a standpoint of what is your ideal housing situation, I would sit here and say, what do I want? You know, what are my wants when it comes to housing?
Right. And that could also be futuristic because you'd be like, when you graduate, what you want to live like. But as far as a college student, there's certain limitations in what our ideal housing situation looks like.
Well, don't forget now what we're looking for here too is what are your barriers to affordable and decent housing?
Right.
So we need to make sure we hit on that in one of these questions. If we don't, we need to really kind of almost like we asked for the hunger side. Didn't we ask something like that? I think it was Faith's question, maybe. It was something about barriers.
Yeah, and we can almost pretty much just take that question and apply it to the housing side because the bottom portion of that, the what prohibits this is really the biggest thing. Like, so if we do that barrier question, it's the same thing.
Sort of like a follow-up to that question, I would say, if you believe your housing situation is not adequate, what barriers prohibit you from having an adequate housing situation?
I think that was the purpose of number 1. Like, what affects where you choose to live? Is it because you need to be close to the school? Is it the cost, the location? And I may not have like articulated that well in the phrasing of the question. But maybe.
How about what are the primary barriers that keep you from? Now we're trying to get to the affordable part, not necessarily ideal, but the affordable and accessible part. And then it could be a multiple choice question, and you can, because we're going to say what are the primary. And so you could have like A, transportation, B, income, adequate income, C, something else that y'all could think of. We could just
transportation income
choices. Pardon me?
No, I'm looking at transportation, income, location, education, all those things fit in there.
Did you say education?
Yeah, I think that we know that, for instance, that people that have degrees make 15% more than people that don't.
Okay, now remember, this is targeted to college students anyway, so nobody has a degree yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe transportation, income, location? And I don't know if there's another one you all might think of.
I don't know if this is, I'm sorry.
Think of families. I don't know if like students have, to like responsibilities with their family that prevent them, like having an affordable housing because they have to spend something else, or they have to, live with a parent to take care of a parent or something like that.
Good one.
And looking at number 4, it really is the same as kind of sort of number 1, what affects where you live.
Right.
I think we've replicated that. So we can go through that, Jamie. Y'all agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of that on the left-hand side is taken care of now.
And I just want to say for number 4, I feel like we're missing something as far as affordable, yes, accessible, yes, but something about like the lack of stress or like the healthiness of the environment, but I don't know if that's related or if that's too far out.
We don't want to get into the health thing only because that's a whole different thing unto itself, because there are fields of study that focus only on health and housing. And so I would recommend that you there. One thing that we could add for a fifth area would be discrimination, though, because we know that college students do experience discrimination in housing, whether it's based on socioeconomic status or whether it's based on violations of the fair housing laws that pertain to race and gender and disability. We've had complaints over the years in our office based on fair housing violations that students experience on and off campus.
Wow.
And so that might be something to touch on. You know, have you ever experienced housing accessibility barriers based on your socioeconomic status, race, gender, disability, you know, that type of thing? That's a huge area that a lot of students don't even know can protect them when they're trying to get housing on or off campus. It touches on a lot. We definitely want to touch on socioeconomic status, because there may be things that the city may be able to do to help address that.
Okay.
What do y'all think about that?
I like it.
Okay, Curtis, what do you think? Cameron, whoever else, what do y'all think? Bruce?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
I think that's an important question to ask too. So I love it.
Okay, so which ones are your short answers? Y'all have a lot of short answers for housing, right? It looks like you have 3. The first 3?
Number 2 can be yes or no.
Okay.
Do we still have enough people to vote? Sophie
may have left.
Yeah, she left.
She left?
Yeah, that's,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
5 could probably also be yes or no.
Uh-huh.
Or at least
Wait,
we'll
so you said
formalize.
which one, Faith?
Number 5.
Well, what we can do is break number 5 down and have the choices be socioeconomic
Multiple choices.
ability, race. You know, we can break down the protected classes. We can work on that for you all, because that's what we do. So look, this is what we're going to do, Cab. You all have your questions now. We can help you all to make sure the questions are framed the way they were intended to be framed. And then we can just have you all just to agree to send forth these recommended draft questions. So if we characterize these as draft questions, then they can go ahead. Oh, wow. You can barely see me, huh? But anyway, you can go ahead and just recommend those without voting, and then we'll follow back up in whatever way we may need to. But right now they can be recommendations, because again, WSSU also needs to review these recommendations from you.
Okay.
Just to
Your recommendations, then we'll figure out a way for you all to vote somehow. Okay?
don't forget about the dissemination part either.
Exactly. Yeah. Did everybody follow back up? Thank you, Bruce. Did you follow back up with your campuses about the best way to disseminate the survey questions?
Yes, I talked to Ms. Lewis, and I'll talk to her again today. And I know it has to go through the Office of Strategic Innovation, any survey. So that's pretty much the way it goes for SciTech.
Question. We talked about going to one of the town halls, Winston-Salem town halls for a government meeting at like December 7th, I think. Are we still doing that as a group?
Mayor.
Myra, before we go to that, let's try to wrap this part up first about whether or not people have had a chance to talk to their schools. Did anybody else have a chance to do that yet, to talk to your administrators?
I did. Basically, I talked to the SGA president, and she said that she'd be willing to disseminate it once we figure out the final group of questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else?
I have to step away.
Okay, and Curtis, you already talked to your administrator anyway, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Curtis. Cameron, did you talk to your administrator?
I haven't had a chance to talk to my administrators, but through some organizations I'm a part of on campus, I know definitely I can get it into their newsletters, and the different department heads send it out as well. But as far as administrator, I can work on that.
Okay, we just needed to know if the survey could be sent via email to all students somehow. Like what method would they recommend for all students to be able to receive the survey? That's all we're asking. And then they can tell you, and then you can let us know, okay? All right, was that everything on the call who's represented? We'll follow back up with that as well. Okay, so we lost a few, but I think that you all did a great job getting everything done today. It was a lot of work. And so you all did a good job. Thank you for coming prepared with your questions. And so since you don't have a quorum anyway, there's no need to vote on adjourning, because we can just say the meeting is adjourned. But any other last minute thoughts? If not, then we will follow back up with you all via email. Any last minute thoughts? Myra, Bruce, Cameron, Faith?
This was amazing. I'm so excited about all the things that we're about to be doing for the community and for students.
Awesome. I agree. I agree. Well, thank you all. We'll be in touch. Check your emails, okay? Thank you for sticking it out. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Mr. Bell in marketing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.